Reference tracks, probably the most important two words you're ever going to learn about sync licensing as you get started in making licensable music for music libraries, okay? As I've been going through a few open reviews with the syndicate members, I'm reviewing a lot of tracks, giving them a lot of feedback, and I'm realizing one of the most common issues and pushback points that I'm finding with their tracks is I can tell just by listening to the track after a couple of seconds that they did not follow a reference track. Now, this is something I have talked about so many times in many of my videos, but I wanted to make one dedicated video just to how important this is, and especially for those of you that are brand new to sync licensing. So you've been producing music for artists or for yourself, for a band, but you're kind of new to the sync world and you want to make sure that you're making something that's going to get placed. What's the point of putting all of these hours into your studio, into all these great pieces of music, when none of them actually get you a placement, right? So what you need to make sure is that whatever you're doing is licensable and useful for the music libraries that you partner with. And if you haven't gotten that first contract yet, that's why it's even more important to have licensable music so that you get accepted. And when they get your submission, they go, this is awesome, this is perfect, this is useful for us, and this is licensable music. Let's go, okay? So reference tracks are a fancy way of basically saying copying or emulating a successful track, right? That's all we're doing when we talk about reference tracks. So the first thing you should do is find a reference track in the genre, the style that you want to go for, okay? So definitely pick a style, pick one song, or pick one genre that you feel is really something kind of that's really strong for you. It's your strong suit. You really just love that kind of sound. Go to a library and find a track in that style that's high quality, preferably something that's obviously probably above your level, that's a little bit higher quality than you. The mix is bigger, the production value is a little bit higher, and maybe a little bit well crafted than your average track than what you can do. Again, if you want to improve, you don't play ball with people that are at your same level. You want to play ball with people who are above you. And so what you want to do is go to a music library, find a track that is licensable. And how do you know? Well, it's been accepted by them. So obviously somebody at the company thought that they could get this track placed, so it's in there. You can do a lot of research, but if you want to save a lot of time, you can get my music library directory. You can go directly to their URLs and look through a lot of their catalogs. Most of them are available online for you guys. Most of them, you can't download the tracks directly, so don't try to do that and don't try to create an account to do that. You probably will just have to have it up on your screen next to your DAW or in a different window, something like that. But something that you could basically pull up, really dissect it, really go from the start of the track all the way to the very end. I have a Sync Academy tutorial that basically breaks down my key points that I look for, all the basically key components that I look for in any genre for any track that I'm trying to really break apart and understand how it works. And basically what you're going to do is emulate it, right? Use the same structure, try to emulate the same kind of sounds, whatever sounds they're using. See if you can find similar sounds, how the track is voiced, right? What is the bass doing? What is the piano doing? Whatever the style is, find out what these instruments are doing and emulate them, okay? Now, do not rip them off and don't commit copyright infringement by literally copying them note for note unless you don't plan on distributing the track. If you just want to do it as an educational walkthrough, then just go do that. It actually is a really good thing to do. I'm going to tell you guys a story a little bit about how it really improved my work to actually do that. But if you actually want to get your track placed and accepted by a music library and you don't want to get sued or have a copyright infringement lawsuit, invent your own chord progressions, your own melodies, right? Drums can be almost identical, if not completely identical. Drums are not one of those things you're going to find too much pushback, but definitely with melodies, leads, things that are recognizable, the sort of song of the track, the melody of the track, that is what's something that you could get in some big trouble if you're sort of copying somebody. But you're going to basically copy and emulate the approach that you hear in this reference track. And what that's going to do is going to give you a blueprint for where to go for the end of your track, to complete your track, right? How many of you have started the track, got a third of the way in, a half of the way there, just bailed on it? Didn't know where to go, didn't know where to go next, didn't have a structure, didn't have an idea of what the chorus should do. You kind of were starting a road trip without a GPS. You didn't really know where you were going to go, so you just started going for a couple of hours and then you realized, wow, I'm lost. I'm going to go back home. With a reference track, you've got a destination point. It is this song, right? You want it to be in this style, in this sound. That's what you're going for. And you can even use its exact structure, verse, chorus, bridge, build up to the big chorus, big crescendo at the end. Basically use tracks that you feel are really high quality and above your level to push yourself to try to get closer to their level. This is basically a way for you to get a free coaching mentoring session with any producer online, any musician, any band, anybody that you really want to follow in the footsteps of. You can literally get a free lesson from them by just taking their track and emulating what you're hearing, okay? So I did this actually about a year into my licensing business career, and I got an opportunity to start it was basically a theme song that was going to follow in the style of a Lady Gaga track. And actually, there were a couple other tracks that they wanted. Now, I thought I was a great producer. I thought I already had made it. I already thought that I had like top quality production. So the library that I was working with, though, gave me these reference tracks, and the guy that owned the library gave me some really great advice. He said, take one of those tracks, go purchase it from iTunes or wherever. I don't even know where I bought music back then. Probably iTunes. Throw it into your DAW. Literally create a track, throw it up there, and try to emulate exactly what they're doing, but obviously reinvent it for your own purposes. Now, the first thing that I did is actually not even reinvent it. I just completely copied and pasted exactly everything that I heard. I think it was actually the Kevin Randolph, Kevin Rudolph, Let It Rock. I think that was the song that I did. And so I basically put the track in my DAW session, stacked up all my instruments, listened to the kick, found a similar kick, listened to the guitar, stacked up a similar guitar, everything that I was hearing in that. I had it all laid out in my session, hit play on the track, and then I emulated it note for note, everything completely. Obviously, mine sounded different. I wasn't using the exact same. I didn't have their source files of where they got all their sounds. Mine didn't sound nearly as good. But here's what I learned when I did that. Now, that was just for educational purposes. I didn't put that track out because it was obviously a note-for-note ripoff of what I was doing there, just to teach myself this. What I learned in that process is that I was overstacking my sessions. I had way too much stuff going on. I thought you had to have 3 different leads and 8 different snare drums and all these different things happening in the track and all these different percussion elements to make the track sound bigger. But actually, I wasn't making my tracks bigger by doing that. I was actually just congesting them, making them very noisy. And when I listened to Let It Rock, I was like, there's not a lot going on, but it's just all like big. Like everything's just working. Everything has a specific place and it needs to be there. If you took one of these elements out of the track, the whole thing falls apart. And every small part or every instrument had a very distinct place and purpose within the mix, but there wasn't a lot of stuff happening. Everything had its particular place: a bass line, a guitar, and a lead. Generally, that's kind of the 3 elements, right? And sometimes when there was a vocal, obviously there wasn't much of a lead going on. And the drums were fairly just minimal, but just had a good groove to them and just great samples. That was another thing. I realized that the samples I was using were just not that high quality, and I thought, oh, don't worry about it now, I'll fix it in the mix, right? How many of you guys have committed that error, thinking that it doesn't matter if that snare doesn't really snap right now because I'll just mix and master it to the point where it just cracks at the end? It doesn't usually work out that way. Usually your rough mix should sound pretty damn good, pretty much there, and the mastering, mixing process should just be, smoothing out the edges a bit, maybe widening out the stereo spread, bumping up the volume of the mix. But you shouldn't be doing a lot of heavy lifting in that mastering process. It should be just literally icing on the cake, just a little bit of extra enhancement to your mix. So you should start with high quality samples, a well-crafted tune, and it doesn't have to be super busy and super complex. So as I mimicked this producer's track, I learned so much about the production process that I wanted to start to put into my songs. From that day forward, no longer was I stacking up just tons and tons of stuff and throwing things in and go, oh, my track's not big enough. Let me throw in another synth and another thing. I know a lot of you guys are committing that same problem right now. And this goes for orchestral music, minimal music, corporate, hip hop, you name it. It all can be basically stripped down to not too many elements, but really great sounding samples and drums and guitars and pianos, and just a well-crafted track, right? With good dynamics, good interest building along the way, all of those good things, okay? So if you need to take a week or 2, and just if you're feeling like you're kind of hitting a bit of what do you call it, like a wall, you're not progressing much in your production, you don't feel like you're moving forward, I guarantee you, just try this. Just try this for a week or 2. If you're going to completely, take somebody's notes, note for note and chord progression for progression, obviously do not submit it to anybody else. Don't get it distributed. Don't even post it online. You don't want to have any headaches like that and copyright infringement problems. So it's one of those things that you will learn so much about the production process just following in the footsteps of a giant that came before you. That's somebody that figured it out. They had kind of a formula that really works and you like it, you look up to it. You're basically getting a private tutoring session directly from them, and costs you nothing. It's 100% free. So I can't stress this enough. This is something that all of you guys should really start to put into your workflow. Now, even if you've been at this for 5 or 10 years, going back to reference tracks fairly consistently is still a really, really good idea. I still use them 11 years into this business. I know students or producers that have been in this industry longer than I still use reference tracks, especially when you get something like a custom offer, a gig, maybe somebody wants you to write a track for a particular jingle or a commercial, and they give you a reference track. It's a really good idea sometimes just to pull, if you can get a copy of that reference track, pull it right into your DAW or at least have it up in your browser next to you, and really make sure you got a blueprint. You've got that GPS destination point to make sure you don't get lost in the weeds. And, if you start a track, you wind up going in a completely different direction. You miss the mark in terms of the mood or the genre or any of those kind of factors, right? This is something that's going to keep you focused, and in the long run, it's going to make you a much stronger producer. I can guarantee you that. So let me know, you guys, let me know your thoughts below. If you've done this, let me know how it worked out for you. If you've never tried this before, let me know what you think. Do you think this could be something that could be useful? Also, do it. I guarantee you, just go do it and then come back to this video and comment. And if it takes a week or two for you to do that, that's fine. But I really want to get your guys' feedback as far as how many of you guys actually start doing this and what the results are for you. Because I think this is one of those things that every producer, I don't care if you're in sync licensing or not, every producer should be doing this, because it really is one of those ways to skip past kind of getting stuck over and over again, feeling like you're hitting a wall, not progressing. This is one of those ways that'll just push you through it, whether you want to or not. Just following in the footsteps of somebody who does really great production work, mixing and mastering work, is definitely going to improve your game in the long run.